Hello everyone, welcome to your next class. We are going to continue talking about try and accept statements by introducing to you another statement called a finally statement. Essentially, we're going to spend a little bit more time advancing your knowledge on how you can build try and accept logic, as well as the different ways you can configure things together. We're also finally going to spend a little time using that traceback package so you can see how to handle different error messages. So what you're going to learn today is you're going to learn how to deal with finally statements. We're going to define what a finally statement is. I'm going to show you how to use the traceback2 module and do error handling by basically just catching whatever object Python throws at you and storing it in a class that the traceback package is designed to do. So you don't have to know what the error is. You can just store it in an object and deal with it in some other way, shape, or form later on. And that's the point of the traceback package. And then finally, we're going to chain else and finally statements together into our try and accept so you can see all the different ways that these different statements can interact together. So you can use else statements not only for ifs, you can use them for tries as well, and you'll see how that works. So, first let's go over definitions. We only have one definition to go over today. We're going to talk about finally statements. So finally is a statement that you can run with a try and accept, and when you put finally statements into your code, you can see basically what it'll do is no matter what happens with the try and accept, it's going to run this next block afterwards no matter what. So it tries and it's successful, or it accepts and it fails and throws some error. You can then do this command after the fact to, I don't know, have your code run in a way that you would like it to. And then we're going to show you how to use an else statement on top of that. So, without further ado, let us jump into our syntax and see how this is all working. Okay, so here we are. This set of code should be fairly similar to last time, except we've added and changed some things around. So first off, you'll notice that I do have the package traceback2 installed in this syntax. I've set a y equal to 0, x equal to 22, and I'm doing an x divided by 0 a calculation here. So when I run this try and accept, if this equals 0, this try block should fail and this accept should happen. Now, look what's happening here. Now, this is a little bit different. We have accept and then exception, any old exception, as EX. And this is what the traceback module is doing. So now we can basically label whatever the exception is and store it in an object that we can do something with later. We can have our, rather than having like 5 or 6 different accept statements, we can maybe do like if the X is a specific type of condition, then do one thing or another. You can do whatever you want. You can just have it print whatever the exception is into a file that you can examine later. But this exception as EX here is what is the traceback package. So rather than calling a specific error, you're just calling any exception, and by using the as and then this part here, you're saving it into an object. So you can make this anything. This is a variable name, guys. So this could be error, this could be, you know, anything that you wanted to label it as. I'm labeling it as EX because that stands for exception for me. So now that this try and accept has been run, you can see that we have an else statement. So this should run, basically we would expect how this try except else is going to work is it's going to try and do this. If it can do this, then it's going to, and it doesn't error. So what else is doing in this case is going, okay, try and accept. If it doesn't error, then do something else now. Now that this try has successfully worked, you should then print the result. If it hit an exception, the else will not run this print result is. Lastly, this finally is going to run no matter what. So whether or not the exception is raised, this accept this finally statement will run. So if I set this y equal to 2, what would happen instead is result equals x divided by y would work. It would then go to this else statement where it would print the result and then print this finally clause, okay? However, if this is 0, what's going to happen is this is going to fail. This result equals is going to fail. This except statement is going to work. We're going to, using traceback, pass the exception type into this EX variable and print the variable. Else is not going to run. And finally is still going to run as well. So finally runs on both no matter what ends up happening. Okay, so with that, guys, let's move into code and see how this is all operating. Okay, everyone, as you see here, we have our syntax section from before. We have our import statement. I've established some variables. We have a try and except and this else if, or try, except, else, and finally statement going on here. So what happens when I run this? We have a 22 divided by 0 here. So this should throw a divided like 0, like a 0 value error call. But instead what I've done is I've said exception as and labeled it as this EX variable. So when I print EX, we should see something interesting here. First, let's also do exception like that, as well as print EX so you can see what's going on here, and we'll see what happens. So first thing, we see that it printed the class, so it's an exception class, and then it also printed the division by 0 error. So it basically is printing a string that says division by 0 for this exception class. You'll also notice that the else statement didn't run, result is, but the finally statement did run. And it just says finally executing, or it just says executing finally clause. So this ran even though we had an error. What happens when we now don't have a 0 value error in this exception, or in this set of code? What happens then? So this try does work, and it does print result is so on and so forth. The value 22 divided by 3, which is a bit over 7, and it still does in fact print the finally clause. So as you can see here, you can do all kinds of different stuff with this kind of syntax. So now when we have exception, so let's see EX here and see what else we can do with it. Is there anything else that we can do? We can maybe do like if X equals division by 0, let's just even do a string. We can, print something, error in error in divider. We'll just put, and see what happens here. Oh, that didn't error because it wasn't 0. So now we can get it to do something specific with whatever kind of error it is. We can go elif, some other x equals something else, and so on and so forth. So it's a little bit easier to handle building this out. You can do else from here and build that all out and look at each of these one at a time. It's just a nice little package to do that. All right, so after that, that's basically it, guys. So let's do a recap of what we learned here. First, we learned a little bit more about try and except logic. We introduced the traceback package for you so that you can pass an error into a variable and do something with it in a more object-oriented way. Print it to an out file or do some sort of additional if-else logic with it. We did basic error. What we did also is add finally and else statements to our try and except, so you can have these really interesting chains of try, except, else, and finally logic. With that, guys, thank you very much, and see you next class.